Hi everyone, my name is Fariha Fazia. I am a rising junior at Fordham University and the mentor for the Bronx River Water Quality Project, aka the River Raiders. We're investigating how climate change has affected the water quality of the Bronx River. Climate change causes global rising temperatures, heat waves, and natural disasters like storm surges, hurricanes, and droughts. Storm surges lead to increased amounts of surface water runoff and wastewater, which can influence the biogeochemical cycle, contribute to climate change, and conflate its effects. The presence of chemical pollutants in water have a negative impact on water quality, as indicated by excess algae growth, eutrophication, and lower levels of dissolved oxygen. To determine how these changes have impacted the water quality of the Bronx River, we are comparing it to the historical data from 2015 to 2021 in the months of June to August. For this research project, we are using water quality indicators to measure the effects of climate change, pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, nitrates, and coliform.
The first thing we do before we set out each day to collect data is put on our waders.
Over the course of 3 weeks, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have been coming to the Bronx River to collect water samples from 2 sites in the Bronx Zoo. In Site 2, we're collecting a water sample in the afternoon.
So after collecting our water sample from Site 2, we want to label it just to make sure that we don't mix it up with our morning sample or from our sample from Site 7. And we also want to label that it's from the afternoon as well as still water.
Yeah, it looks like 0.2.
I think another variable that we test for in the water samples are nitrate levels. So we have a nitrate test kit here. We add chemicals and then we see what the color of the water sample becomes, and we compare it to different colors using this tool. This to determine the amount of nitrate in the water.
I was testing the temperature, pH level, dissolved oxygen, and when I was putting the probes into the water, you can actually see all of the data in our iPad that was graphed.
We examined the average water temperature of the Bronx River from 2015 to 2021, specifically looking at months June to August except 2020 due to lack of data. When looking at the graph, there is an overall increase in the water temperature. The average met its lowest in 2017, measuring 71.08 degrees, and its highest in 2021, measuring 78.38 degrees. The cause of this increase is most likely due to climate change and air temperature rising. When looking at the average air temperatures from 2015 to 2021 in New York City, it shows a similar pattern to temperature of water samples. This proves that the climate has an effect on the water temperature.
We compared our dissolved oxygen data with the data we collected for nitrate concentrations on a scatter plot. Using the line of best fit, we can determine that there is a positive correlation between the dissolved oxygen and nitrates in our 2021 samples. As water runs from Site 7 to Site 2, it passes through abundant vegetation, which can remove nitrates from water. Plants absorb nitrates and use them to create proteins. Site 2 is smaller and the water is closely surrounded by vegetation, while Site 7 is more open. The increased plant life at Site 2 may be a factor in the lower levels of nitrate. Increased levels of nutrients such as nitrates and phosphates can lead to decreased dissolved oxygen in a body of water. Nitrification reduces dissolved oxygen levels because oxygen in the water is used in the chemical process that turns nitrogen in the form of ammonia into nitrates. Unexpectedly, Site 2 has both lower average levels of nitrates and lower average levels of dissolved oxygen than Site 7 in 2021.
Compare the average dissolved oxygen concentrations, also known as DOC, from the months of June to August from 2015 to 2021. When comparing the change of the average DOC from 2015 to 2021, there is an overall increase, meaning an increase in water quality leading to an increase in the biodiversity in and around the river. DOC is important in marine life because it provides oxygen for aquatic organisms. The average DOC fluctuates with a high of 8.27 milligrams per liter in 2021 and a low of 6.09 milligrams per liter in 2018. There are a variety of factors that led to this fluctuation in DOC, including water temperature, biological oxygen demand, and fertilizer runoff. Climate change has an impact on the temperature of the water, therefore it also affects the DOC. It leads to unhealthy amounts of DOC in water, which leads to loss of biodiversity and extreme conditions, no aquatic life in the river.
Few limitations with the openly sourced data that we used to compare with the data we collected. The data that we used from Bronx River Alliance was collected from a site located outside the Bronx Zoo. There were also multiple gaps in the data provided, and this should be taken into account when reading the graphs we created. We were also unable to compare data over a longer period of time prior to 2015 because of limited availability of data collected during summer months. There were a few additional limitations. We were occasionally unable to test the collected samples for water temperature until 15 to 20 minutes after we collected the water from the sites. This may have allowed the samples to change temperature before we used the probes. Also, when testing our samples for nitrate levels, we were required to reuse the same test tubes. This may have allowed our water samples to become contaminated. Thus, the results of each nitrate test might not be completely accurate. Also, the tool used to determine the nitrate level of a water sample needed to be held up under a light source. When comparing the color of the sample to approximate the nitrate concentration, the lighting varied as we were indoors and/or outdoors during testing. This may have led our results to be inaccurate.
We tested various factors that contribute to the quality of the Bronx River's water. Global warming is worsening, and as a result, there's an increase in research being done surrounding this topic to see its impacts. By testing the Bronx River's water quality, we are able to see the effects climate change is having locally, such as an increase in water temperature. This research can be taken into consideration when people test the water quality in following years, and researchers can see how these variables have changed over the years. Along with using the data we collected to compare with future data, other groups could also test variables we were unable to test, such as salinity and conductivity.
That was not me, that was the water.
Gross, Anaya.